control freaks that are running things have a code. They have to give us clues about the evil things they've done or plan to do. If we don't figure it out and do something about it, they figure we deserve what we get. Leading up to September 11th, 2001, the date, the numbers 9 and 11, were foreshadowed many times in the media by these people, appearing on clocks, dials, dates on paperwork, and countless other ways. Here we'll look at just some of the analog clocks with the hands either directly or almost directly pointing to 9 and 11, or pointing to 11 minutes past 9, that were purposely shown in movies and on television between 1978 and 2001. At the end, you'll see a clock that will tie the events of 9/11 in with the person who was the main driving force behind what happened on that day. He's also one of the only people on the planet who actually had the means to arrange all the foreshadowing before the crime and the motive to carry it out. And it's not this guy. Superman, released 23 years before the crime in 1978. The clock behind Clark Kent shows the time just before 9:11 a.m. Another clip from Superman, 1978, entirely different day in the movie, clock hands pointing to exactly 11 minutes past 9. Trading Places, 1983, the clock on the wall has its hands pointing at 9 and 11. Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983. The clock with the spinning hands in the opening credits shows 9 and 11 on the dial right before it flies off the screen. Rambo 2, 1985. Clock behind two men in the movie shows 9 and 11. Mannequin from 1987. Clock behind the actors shows 11 minutes past 9. Awakenings from 1990. Clock behind those bars has the hands set closest to 9 and 11. Same movie, Awakenings, different clock, 11 minutes after 9. The Fisher King from 1991. Camera pans up to a clock on the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company Tower in Manhattan, hands at 9 and 11. The Distinguished Gentleman from 1992, 11 minutes after 9. Same movie, different clock, same time, 11 minutes after 9. The Paper from 1994. Man looks at his watch and the hands are at 9 and 11 on the dial. LA Confidential from 1997. Clock on the wall clearly shows 9 and 11. X-Files episode called Max from 1997. Camera shows a watch with the hands closest to 9 and 11. Another X-Files episode entitled Synchrony from the same year. Very clear shot of a clock shows 9 and 11. Godzilla, 1998. Man looks at his watch, hands are at 9 and 11. The 13th Floor from 1999. Clock on the wall has the minute hand closest to 9 and the hour hand closest to 11. Another X-Files episode called NME. Hour hand closest to 9 and minute hand closest to 11. Maze, movie from 2000. Camera shows a night table with two clocks. The analog clock clearly shows 11 minutes past 9. Someone Like You, released in 2001. Clock hands pointing to 9 and 11. This next to last clock is in the background of a commercial that played on television the morning of 9/11 at 8:46 a.m., the same moment that the attacks on the towers began. It's an Entenmann's advertisement starring Whoopi Goldberg. Notice the time on the clock behind her. Meanwhile, in New York... Here's the last 9/11 clock in this series, and the most important. You're about to see a scan of a Newsweek magazine. The cover picture is of a man sitting in an office window, his watch prominently displayed. When the watch is flipped over to the way that the man would see it when it's on his arm, hands are pointing directly at 9 and 11. The second hand is even positioned exactly at the 11 mark on the dial. Here's a close-up of that watch. What separates this foreshadowing from the rest is the fact that this magazine is from back in April of 1967, less than 1 year after the construction of the World Trade Center towers began. And the man wearing the watch is the person who made sure they got built. His name, David Rockefeller.
The two of you, when you were a leader at Chase Manhattan and he was governor, were responsible for really the World Trade Center?
We worked together on that.
Lower Manhattan was deteriorating, and a radical plan for its revitalization was championed by David Rockefeller and his brother Nelson, then governor of New York. With Mayor John Lindsay on board, they set out to build a trade center, the likes of which the world had never seen, and on a shocking scale. 2 110-story towers.
Here is David today. David is proud of being part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. He brags about this on page 405 of his 2002 autobiography entitled Memoirs. He was also quoted prior to 9/11 as saying, "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis. And the nations will accept the New World Order." If you know anything about the New World Order, you'll understand why this is a big problem for a huge percentage of the people on this planet. Since they became obscenely wealthy back in the 1800s, David's family has been using their immense, ill-gotten fortune to take over literally every aspect of our lives as Americans. Our education and medical systems, our economy, and our media. These people love war, murder, corruption, oppression, and, if the right major crisis does not occur, they'll create it to further their agenda. And, as in the case of the time between the building and demolition of the World Trade Center, they can wait a very long time for their plans to come to fruition. Why would he show himself on the cover of a magazine with his watch hands set at 9 and 11 and make sure so many clocks show 9 and 11 in the movies and on television? It's all part of their code, and so far, they must think we're too dumb to notice. So remember who made sure those towers got built, 110 stories and a height of over 1,300 feet each. Enormous open floors that a fire could easily sweep across, and substandard fireproofing. No fire escapes and no automated sprinklers. And the next time someone tries to tell you that this guy and these guys committed the acts of 9/11 and brought us the Patriot Act, the NDAA, and the bogus war on terror and the encroaching police state, remember the man who brought us the towering death traps, the same man who is proud to be fighting against the United States and what we stand for. And remember that this same person actually had the motive, the means to pull it off, and the ability to arrange all the clues you've seen here. Especially this one. Also remember that this person has gotten away with it, for now.
I'm glad I did.